Hey guys, and welcome back. Oh crap, getting attacked already. Welcome back to another episode of Everquest Old School. They interrupted my intro. You're going to die, skeleton. Die. There we go. Those guys, they're hard. I mean, not hard to kill, but they just sneak up on you so easily in this area. And there's tons and tons of skeletons over here, which is nice if you're a Shadow Knight or a Necro. That gives you plenty of bone chips to be able to get. Shadow Knight's not so much because, again, you won't get your bone chips to around level 9. But it's still kind of nice to be able to stack them up right now because as a Shadow Knight, you're going to be the pooler, you're going to be the tank, and your pet is going to die so much more than a Necro's because he's so low compared to what you are, and that you're actually going off and pulling creatures, and your pet really doesn't like that. Your pet is kind of designed to take the aggro, take the hits. He's not really designed as a secondary, like, stay here while I go off and pull here, and I'll take the aggro, and you just do a little bit of extra damage in the background. Now, you can kind of make them work that way if, if you're skilled enough and you know how to, tell your pet to back off or stand guard or stay here. Use those kind of pet commands that you get, but they don't always work, and your pet doesn't always cooperate. And so you will have it a lot of the time where you'll pull 3 or 4 creatures to your group, and your pet just misbehaves. He goes off and he attacks those guys while you're back at the group waiting for him to get there. And your only other choice is to, one, run up there and try to save your pet, and that's not going to happen because you'll put your whole group in danger, including yourself, to save 2 bone chips. No, and a little bit of DPS that usually is very, very low because, again, you're fighting creatures that are either, even to you or blue to you. And, basically he's like 5, 6, 7, 8 levels lower than the creature you're fighting, sometimes even more than that. And so very rarely does he even get a hit off. And when he does, he's using his hands and not a weapon. If you do give him a weapon, it's like a rusty, piece of junk weapon that doesn't have a lot of damage to begin with. So even when he hits the enemy, it's very, very low. So the DPS is almost non-existent. And so when he does something stupid like that, you're not going to risk your life. He's just going to run off there and die. And if you have, say, Breeze on or Clarity or KEI, then you have extreme amounts of power that you're probably not using, and you can cast another pet if you have the bone chips for it. So that's usually what people will do if he runs off and does something incredibly foolish, which is pretty often. I mean, I got to the point, I believe around level 20-something, where I quite literally just stopped casting my pet 90% of the time. I mean, when I'm soloing, I would still use the pet because, something's better than nothing, and a lot of the time I could use that pet for about a split-second distraction, which would allow me to run for the entrance if I was in over my head. And like I said, split second is sometimes all you really need, but that's all he's going to give you because he is, again, a pretty pathetic excuse at that level. I mean, he might have been fine if you got him a little sooner, but they don't give it to you like that, and you look forward to it because you keep hearing about all these wonderful, wonderful things about a Necro pet, and you just never really quite get to that level. Now, if you go to a low-level zone and you're hunting creatures that are significantly less than you are, and you say you're trying to camp a named or something like that, then the Necro pet, your Shadow Knight pet, actually comes into play a little bit there because he's fighting a creature that may be lower level than him, and he'll do quite a bit of damage. Basically, all that does is make your life a little easier because you don't have to go attack the enemy. You can just send your pet in and have him kill it for you because you're not there for experience, so you're not worried about the experience loss of letting your pet do most of the damage. You're just there for the loot. And so that allows you to sit on your butt and just click a little button and say go attack. Once it's dead, you can get up and go loot it, go sit back down and wait for the next spawn if it's a placeholder or whatever the case may be. But 99% of the time, that pet is just... It was disappointing, to be honest. You level all those levels, and every single time I was foolish enough to believe that my pet was going to come into play. Here I go. This is when my class is really going to start, taking off, and I'm going to start integrating a lot more of the Necros aspect of the game into my character because they have so many spells, so many things they can do that I figured eventually we'd get something good, and the pet was going to be it, right? We're going to be like slash mage kind of style, But No, you just never quite get those spells. You get a few dots, you get a couple slow spells, your Engulfing Darkness, your Dooming Darkness kind of stuff, which are the same spells, just an upgrade to the lower level one. I believe Dooming Darkness is the higher level one, Engulfing Darkness is one of the lower level ones, but yeah, it's, you never quite get, like, the charm spells that Necro have. You never quite get any of the really, really good dots that they have that just do tremendous amounts of damage. Even if all they ever gave you was like one of those spells, I think it would have made a huge improvement on how sought after Shadow Knights were, because they were not sought after at all. So it's not like they would have been overly sought after and, you know, impacted other people's gameplay. I think just giving them something worthwhile at all, in even just the smallest sense, would have been fine. You know, would have been something worth doing for Shadow Knights, because it was really hard to find groups, to be honest, at the time. When there's tons and tons of people on, you have to compete with monks, and frankly, you don't compete with monks when pooling comes into contact or a concern, and you don't compete with warriors when tanking is an issue. You don't compete with rogues or wizards when DPS is an issue, and so you really don't do anything exceptionally well. Whereas almost every other class has one thing that they can say they do well. You know, wizards, necros, rogues, they can all say they do DPS, and very few other ones can say they even come close to matching their skill. And they stack because there are three different classes. They don't have spells that cancel each other out for the most part. There's a few in there that do, but for the most part, you can have all three in your group and be perfectly fine. But again, you know, Shadow Knights were not one of those ones that can be like, you know, I'm an exceptional, or, you know, really good. Can't talk tonight. Exceptional about pooling or tanking or damage or even just taking hits. I mean, you didn't do any of those very well, but you did them all decently. So I guess maybe that was the trade-off. You know, the other classes, they all seem to have weaknesses. You know, the casters, they can do tremendous amounts of damage, but they can't really take hits that well. Whereas healers can do, you know, tremendous amounts of healing, but they can't dish out, you know, even an average amount of damage, unless, of course, you're talking about clerics hitting undead creatures or something like that. I don't know why I'm getting so much lag here, guys. I do apologize for that. The server has been kind of weird after that last patch, so hopefully they will fix that issue, because it seems to come and go. Like, it's just one of those things. For 5-10 minutes there, I'll get a little bit of lag, and then it's gone for hours on end. It seems to always happen, though, when I start recording. Out of my bad luck, it doesn't always happen, but, you know, it's just one of those things I notice a little bit more when I'm actually recording an episode. Come on, kill this thing. We're going to kill this other one. The other spider will come back to me. I don't feel like chasing it at the moment. Jesus, this lag is horrible. Let me go ahead and pause the video after this kill and see if I can fix this or reset my internet or something, because this is not the way I want to record this video. But yeah, Shadow Knights, they have everything within average ranking, basically. So this kind of cool that you can do a little bit of everything, but you're not very good at anything. And so that part kind of sucks, and it makes it very hard to get into a group. I'm not even targeting anything. There he is. He's dead. Grab that. You're about to be dead too, buddy. If another spider doesn't... Oh, I knew something was going to sneak up on me. That's just the kind of forest we're in. Oh, we got another spiderling. And you guys will see I actually have a new weapon. Yeah, some of you guys may recognize these weapons from the Shamanic Epic. We had a guy here who was giving them away. I did that on my last video. I showed you guys which one it was. And somebody's here hitting pretty hard. I think it's a Shadow Wolf. He's probably yellow. Yep, he sure is. I don't know if we're going to be able to do that guy. We're going to have to run it. Yep, I hate doing that. Actually, we might be able to do it. He's at 48. Let me try it. Let me try killing him. If I die, I die. I'm not running it. We're too close. Now, the problem is I have to kill the Shadow Wolf, and I also have to kill the Spiderling, and then I also have to kill the other spider who decided to run on me. And it looks like the lag has disappeared, so it's one of those things. But yeah, these are... I don't want them to hit me from behind. Oh, and a bear came to kick me in my face. Oh my god. What are the... Now I'm bleeding. Oh, what a horrible, horrible way to start it off. That is one of the dangers about fighting over here in this forest, is you have to worry constantly about ads. And I think that's a good thing for a Shadow Knight. is that it teaches you early on to change your view instead of just scrolling out like a lot of people tend to do, because it's a little easier to move around that way. You need to hit that F9 key and move it around so that you can see a 360-degree view of yourself, so that you can constantly swing around and make sure nothing's sneaking up on you, that you know it ahead of time. Now, for most classes, they would have to sit here and be like, oh, now I got to remember my spells and you know, put my buffs on and all that other stuff. Boom, I don't got to do any of that. I don't have any spells. I am back into combat. Even at level 9, when you finally do get your spells, there's very few that you really need to go get your corpse. You know, Fatigue Death is pretty much the only one you're going to want to put on right away. When you do get your Invis spells, then yeah, definitely put those on as well. But for the most part, you don't really need any of the other ones. They don't really do all that much. You have Life's Siphon Life spell, which is kind of nice in combat, but I've actually noticed when I was using that spell back in the day that by the time I actually would cast that spell, the amount of damage I would take from stopping to attack to cast, I would have lost more than what I'm going to gain from the creature. And that's normally because I would take on creatures that were a little bit higher level than me. If I'm gonna do something solo, I'm gonna do it to a degree of getting back a large return, is my idea behind it. I wasn't attacking 10,000 little tiny blues. I wanted a good even, or I wanted a yellow. I wanted something of a challenge, even if I had to wait like 20 minutes after the fight to heal back up. You know, that's the way I was playing it. But you don't have to play it that way. I know a lot of people prefer blues, take very little damage, get right back into combat, and in the end, you probably make more experience doing it that way. But because I'm one of those people that I don't really get into the mood too often to play a tank, but when I'm in the mood to play a tank, it's because I want to tear something up. I want to wreck the zone if I'm possible. You know, I want to come through it, pull like 15 creatures, bring them back to a corner, and just beat on them for the next like 10 minutes, wiping them all out. Can't really do that too often because a lot of the time, you know, you're not going to be able to tank 15 creatures, especially if you're getting experience for it. But with my Shadow Knight, I would actually take them to zones that I wasn't getting experience for anymore, or very, very little experience for anymore, and I would pull a whole bunch and just sit there and beat on them for a little while because I was in the mood. You know, those are the two moods that I'm in. I'm either kind of lazy and sitting in the back healing, or I'm very energetic and hyper and wanting to go through and explore new zones and see new rooms and fight new creatures that I've never fought before and die maybe, you know, quite literally, possibly the chance of dying in a new zone that I've never died in before, and then experiencing how hard it is to get a corpse run into that zone, because as a cleric, you almost never have to worry about a corpse run. You know, if you die, it's because the group probably died, and if the group died, you have everybody there trying to get you back to the corpses, not because they really care more about you than they do themselves. Probably quite the opposite, because getting you back as a cleric will allow them to get reses, and then they won't have to make the corpse run for other players who are really, really far away if you can just res everybody. Plus, they get that experience back. So as a cleric, pretty much everybody babies you a little bit, actually quite a bit. At higher levels, they will baby you. If you tell them you don't know how to get to a room and you're a Shadow Knight, that's the end of the conversation. You're not joining our group. Go learn the zone. Because you got to pull too, and if you don't know how to get to the zone or to that room, you don't know how to pull either. At least not that area, and so they'd rather go with somebody else. But if you're a cleric and you say, I don't know this zone at all, I'm the first time in here, I don't know what any of this stuff does, and you know, I'm completely clueless. They'd be like, oh, come on down. You can't come on down. Well, I tell you what, we're gonna take our entire group up there, clear the entire way, and we'll walk you down, you know, carry you on our shoulders, put you down on a little pedestal, and you can sit there and be nice and cozy, and we'll make sure nothing hurts you. You know, and I'm not even exaggerating. Groups will quite literally do that for, you know, a healer or for an enchanter. Definitely for enchanters, if they can get breeze or clarity or a mezzing, they will go above and beyond to get you down there. But yeah, it's a very day and night kind of difference between a tank and, you know, healers or enchanters. And I know I talk about healers and enchanters quite a bit, but there's not very many other classes out there that people will bend over backwards for. So if you like being in groups, or maybe you haven't been in a lot of groups before, but you kind of want to make a character that's very sought after for them, My suggestion, if you're up for a challenge, would be to pick enchanters. If you're not up to a challenge, but you don't mind having a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, then pick a healer. And you can pick any class of healer that you want. They all can heal in a pinch. Cleric obviously would be the pure healer if you're looking for, you know, something that's a little bit easier than the other classes. In my opinion, I think it is, because druids, they don't get very many good heal spells. They get heal spells, but they're very mana inefficient compared to clerics. And they also have dots, and they have snare, and they have root, and they got all these other spells that will be called upon them to use in a group. Clerics, on the other hand, they have their heal spell, and they have a few buffs. They do have a few stun spells, and soothe, and lull, and stuff like that, but pretty much that's it. I mean, you're really not going to be using that much in the way of your spell bar, other than your healing as a cleric. As shaman, on the other hand, tons and tons of stuff they're going to be doing in a group all the time. Buffs will take up all your power. I've seen in groups where they quite literally will invite more than one shaman into the group just so they can have one shaman doing nothing but buffs, because the other one just can't keep up otherwise. The other shaman is doing dots. He's doing, you know, whatever else they have. I am not that familiar with shamans at high-end levels. Let me back up a little bit. Get them all hitting me in the front rather than from behind. This may turn out to be another one of those bad situations. So let me point it out this way. Okay, so he's running away. Let me go ahead and kill this skeleton, because he's pretty weak. Only take me a few seconds to kill him. And in the meantime, he's hitting me just here and there, a little bit here and there. But mainly he can interrupt you. He can stun you a little bit if he's pushing me back as well. So that's kind of annoying. Let me go ahead and kill this black wolf, who is blue to me. It'd help if I actually hit attack. Now, I'm not using my taunt button nearly as much as I should be doing. Always, always, always use your taunt button, even if you're fighting a lesser creature, or even if you're by yourself. Because the moment you join a group, your taunt is going to be pathetic. You're not going to have a high skill. Even if you've been using that the entire time by yourself, you're still not going to have a very high skill in it. And because of that reason, you're going to suck as a tank. And people are going to notice that. Not going to be happy the fact that you can't hold aggro. A lot of groups, if you can't hold aggro as a tank, will keep an eye out for a new tank. They're not going to boot you right away, but they will eventually boot you in response to, or in lieu of another tank showing up. Because, you know, if you can't do your job, then why do they have you there? It's the same thing as like a cleric. If he can't heal you, then wouldn't you want to trade him for another cleric or another shaman or druid or whatever the case may be that can? And so they will do the same thing. It may seem a little heartless. It may seem like you're taking the game too seriously. But, you know, everybody's playing the game for different reasons. And I believe everybody wants to have fun. And part of the game is leveling. Part of the game is getting loot and camping creatures and spots and getting to know people. And, you know, if you get somebody in there who just refuses to learn. Now, if they don't know, that's another story. If you don't know, ask questions. People, I guarantee you guys, it may seem kind of intimidating because I kind of remember back to the days when I first started getting into groups, and you know, you don't know what the protocol is. You're kind of afraid. These are other people. They can be kind of rude at times. You know, you've heard horror stories and you've heard, you know, this and that. And you don't want to have a bad reputation on the server, because if you suck, word of mouth will get around eventually, and you're not going to be able to find groups very easily, if at all. Occasionally, people will give you the chance to redeem yourself. So if you do kind of make an idiot out of yourself, you know, because you're being stupid and doing things that you're not really supposed to, and you're not listening to what other players are telling you to do, they will occasionally give you another chance because they need the spot filled. They have to have a cleric, and you're the only one in the zone. So even if you're the worst one in the game, let's give him another chance to see how it works out. It may be horrible. We may have to boot him, but we'll go ahead and try it out, because the alternative is just to sit here and wait, and you know, that's kind of boring. So they'll give you another chance, but my suggestion would be listen to what other players say. If you don't know, ask. If nobody's saying what you should be doing, if they're all being very quiet, then just do the best you can. You know, if they're not telling you that you're doing something wrong, then they have no right whatsoever to get mad at you and just boot you from the group. You know, they have to. Well, they don't have to. There's no rule saying they have to do anything, but in my opinion, if they're going to sit there and criticize you, they need to tell you why they're criticizing you, why you need to do this, and then give you a chance to do it. And if you can learn from that, if you can do what they're telling you to do, it's better for everybody. It's better for them. It's better for you in the long run. It's better for, you know, the next group that you get into. And so I constantly help people out who, you know, have questions if they, you know, want to know a certain room and they're like, I've never pulled here before. Like I was over in Unrest the other day and somebody was like, I've never pulled here before. What do I do? And I'm like, pretty much it's easy. You just pull everything down on the bottom floor one at a time or as few as you can. We have an enchanter with us, so you don't have to worry too much about that. And stay away from this false bookcase, which leads down into the basement. Don't go upstairs until you're familiar with downstairs first and the spawn timers, and you can kind of get an idea of whether the group is capable of handling the ones upstairs. You also need magical weapons to hit those. You know, just little tidbits like that. And man, he became so comfortable fighting these creatures so quickly that before long he was pulling faster and better than some of the tanks that I've had in previous groups for a long, long time. So, yeah, it's not that they are incapable of having the skill. It's just that a lot of people don't know better because it's the first time playing. They're coming back after like 10 or 15 years being away from the game. And I don't care if you were like the greatest, you know, whatever class that you played back in the day. 15 years is a long time to be away from any subject. You know, even if it's math, science, history, whatever the case is, you're going to forget a lot of stuff. Now, you may remember it. It may come back to you rather quickly as you get back into the swing of things, but it takes a little while. It takes a little while to get comfortable. Well, isn't just this a kick in the butt? I've been meaning to install this for a while. Just got around to it. Neriac is as confusing as it was in day one in 99. Yeah, it's it can be. It can be. I mean, like I said many times before, when I first started the game, my horror story to get out of that town was to attack a guard. I had to die. I had to die to get out of town. And once I got out of town, I never went back in. I never wanted to go back inside that town. It was so confusing. But once I learned it, oh my god, I loved it. I loved it because it was like a badge of honor. I knew how to get around, and you didn't, sucker. But I would help people out who were lost. And you can always tell the ones who are lost because you can go to like to the bank, and you will see people run by. And you're like, oh, okay, they're you know, running by the bank. They're doing whatever they're doing. And then they run by again, and you're like, okay, that's a little weird, but okay, maybe he's, you know, transferring stuff or going to buy stuff and selling it or whatever, putting it in the bank. And then he runs by again, and you're like, okay, there's what's going on here? You turn around, look around, and you see him going through doors and coming back, and he comes back for a fourth time, and then a fifth time. You're like, okay, you're lost. You're so lost that you're going around in circles, and you don't even realize it. And so I would send them a tail and be like, you're lost, aren't you? And they'd just be like laughing out loud and be like, yeah, frustrated as crap, I'm sure at that point. But, you know, be like, okay, so where do you need to go? And usually they're looking for the NPC for their guild, you know, for that little note that you start with. It sends people off in a little direction, but I think is actually thrown in there not to help you out, but to confuse the crap out of you. Because if all you had was just your equipment and no direction, your first idea would be, okay, how do I get out of here, right? But instead of doing that, they give you a little direction, and they're like, go find this guy. Ha, 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 ha. They're laughing in the background because you're not going to find him. He's not in the same zone. He's in like 3 zones over, and it's a maze to get through each and every single one of those. And they're just sitting there laughing at your frustration, I think. The programmers had a sense of humor. They were, you know, the old-style D&D gamers themselves, and they knew how hard things could be and how hard things should be for the enjoyment of it. And I think they got a little bit of pleasure out of torturing people to some extent. But yeah, I would always try to help them out. And at the very least, if I didn't know where their guild was, because I don't know where every single person's guild is in every single town, but if I didn't know where their guild was, I could at least point them to the right direction to get out of town, so they could at least get into the game of the aspect of fighting. Because once you start fighting, and you come back into town, you sell some stuff, you're like, okay, I'm getting a little bit familiar with this entrance. And after a little while, you're familiar with the entrance, now you go a little bit further, and then you go a little bit further, and before long, you know the zone. But just having that, okay, let me take a break from exploring to go back out and fight, is incredibly nice to have. Hold on, what are they saying now? Yeah, that's been my primary complaint about every other game. There's no real feeling of accomplishment. I agree. I mean, I can't disagree on that one. That's basically been my point from day one, is This game gives you that sense that if you die, it means something. And if you do something good, like a level or a piece of armor, it means something. I play Everquest 2 to this day. I still do videos for that game. I still enjoy it greatly. But compared to that game, when I get a piece of armor from a quest, I don't even bother looking at it half the time. I glance at it. Okay, it's better than what I have on. Put it on. 5 minutes later, I'm going to get something 10 times better than that. 5 minutes after that, I'll get something even better than that. 5 minutes after that, I'll get even something better than that. So it doesn't mean anything to me. I don't memorize the names. Like in this game, I can still picture and I can still remember almost all the armor that my Shadow Knight was wearing back in the day. The FBSS, you know, the flowing black silk sash that I sat there for months trying to get and never could get it in the camp. Kept losing it to mages, kept losing it to casters left and right. The tanks could never get it, and finally when I got groups that would allow the tank to get it first, we would have like 3 tanks, and I would always lose out on the random. I ended up having to just pay for it and buy it myself, but I bought it long after it was actually the best item in the game. Like there was something else that replaced the FBSS that had haste on it. It had a little bit higher haste than the FBSS, which I can't remember what it was. But yeah, the belt came down way in price after that because the other item added stats and things of that sort. And I think the FBSS just adds haste. It doesn't even add anything else. So it's nice for that purpose, but beyond that, you know, if you can get something that adds AC or strength or agility or something, you know, obviously that's going to be sought after more than an item that just adds haste, period. And not even as much as the one that's replacing it. It has a higher haste on the new item, so. But I still remember those. I still remember going over to, what was the name of the zone? Something Boulder. It had the big black iron bastard sword that my friend at the time, who actually bought the game for my brother, was playing. He was called Animosity. He was playing a paladin. For those of you who may have seen him on Interruck with me. But he helped me go over there and get that sword. And at the time, it was a really good sword. I mean, this was back when the game first came out, so there wasn't a lot of stuff you could buy on the broker, and the stuff that you could buy was insanely expensive. You were not going to be able to afford that at all, especially as a new character, and everybody was a new character. So unless you were sitting there, you know, playing 24 hours a day, which I don't even think you could do it then, because I was sitting there playing it almost 24 hours a day. I was going to school, which, you know, I guess there were some people out there who were playing in their 20s or 30s or whatever and didn't have a job at the time, and I guess they were playing it for another 8-9 hours a day that I wasn't. But I would go to school, I would go to work, and when I came home from work, I would play until I had to go to school or go to work the next day. So, did my keyboard just die? Oh, no, there it is. I don't know. What the crap is wrong with my keyboard? It's like it's stuck in typing something, and I can't move forward. See that? It shows up on the screen every single time. What is... So if I hit, and all I do is push forward, it opens up my inventory. I didn't click on anything. What did I click on? Okay, well, guys, we're going to go ahead and end the episode here. I do apologize if it's short. If it is, I may just go ahead and cut this piece out and extend it, but I want to thank you guys for watching. If you do enjoy these videos, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe. Definitely helps grow my channel, and I greatly appreciate it. Also, if you have any tips and tricks you want to leave behind, you want to let people know about, you're more than welcome to do that. In case you're wondering how I'm moving, you can hold both mouse buttons down at the same time, and it will allow you to move in whatever direction you're pointing. So I can still move around a little bit like this. I wanted to thank you guys for watching, and thank you for all the subscribes and comments that you guys have been leaving. It's been a blast playing this game with you, and I'm not going anywhere. It's not a final farewell or anything like that. I'm just thanking you guys for all of that, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.